Hi everyone, welcome to the GoldFIsh Report. I'm your host, Louisa. Today is Wednesday, March 6th, 2019, and this is our GoldFIsh Report number 336. What we're doing is a bi-weekly, maybe almost daily POTUS and FLOTUS report. This just gives you the press releases from the White House and those headline news. So we're going to make this a very quick, a very short report, just so folks can concentrate on what the president is doing strictly. This is all the information that's made available through the press secretary office and possibly also through the press pool information as well. So that information will be made available through these bi-weekly or almost daily, haven't decided. Depends on how much volume there is. Seems like there's an awful lot on a daily basis. So it might actually be, bi-weekly or something like that, or quarterly, or, something of that nature, every other day, something like that. So I'm going to screen share. All of this is published on the GoldFIsh Report blog, and I'm going to screen share that for our viewers. You can either look along or you can just listen to the report. This is strictly about the president, and of course our GoldFIsh reports go into, our POTUS reports go into policy of the president in more detail. This is our POTUS report from this week on Monday, week 111. As you know, our POTUS reports report and do analysis of the prior week. So this currently is our 112th week that the president has been in office. And of course, what we were talking about, one of the most important announcements that came of this report was the announcement that the president had made regarding funding of universities. Universities who receive federal funding must enforce and must uphold the First Amendment, even if it's private. If it's receiving federal funding, it needs to protect the First Amendment, free speech. So that's going to probably be challenged in the courts, but we shall see. When the federal government is supplying the funds, they can pretty much dictate conditions with that money. And if you don't meet those conditions, they simply just don't receive the funding. So you can go into this a little bit more detail. There is, of course, more policy analysis in this report. We're not going to go into that. Basically, we're just going to go into the headlines and a brief explanation as to what the report's about. This is a text of a letter from the president to the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the President of the Senate. And this is regarding trade talks that are not, in the president's view, equitable with India. India has not been giving us access to their markets in accordance with this GSP eligibility criteria. You can go and read more about this if you'd like. It's also, so this is from Monday, of course, and just wanted to make sure I'm going to explain this by day. So this was Monday's. We have also a statement by the press secretary, Sarah Sanders, and this is regarding Chairman Nadler's disgraceful and abusive investigation into tired false allegations by the special counsel committees. Of course, there's no Russian collusion, and you can go here and read all about that. This is, of course, the goldfishreport.blogspot.com. We also have remarks by President Trump to the National Association of Attorneys General, and this is basically reaffirming their support and cooperation with law enforcement and local, state, and federal cooperation regarding programs to remove violent offenders off the street, and also regarding combating the drug and opioid crisis. It does deal with they do make comments regarding the border, and you can go to the blog and take a look and read this all for yourself. Here we also have President Trump approves state of Washington, that is, disaster declaration from December. Regarding their winter storms, mudslides, flooding, landslides, things of that nature. This was all on Monday, of course. President Trump announces intent to nominate key individuals to a key administration post. This is Dale Cabanis of Virginia to be the director of Office of Personnel Management for a term of 4 years. You can go read more about that. We have executive order supporting the transition of active duty service members and military veterans into the Merchant Marine. We talked about this quite a bit on our POTUS report on Monday. and it looks like we have a shortage, and the president is trying to repurpose some of our veterans and give them jobs, obviously, in the process of doing that. So that's important read if you want to go back to the blog and take a look at this. Remarks by President Trump welcoming the 2018 IFCS national champions. So you can go read this. You know that President Trump is a big sports buff, loves football, basketball, all kinds of sports. So he is very, he enjoys interacting with the sports teams at the White House for sure and showing their achievements. Okay, sorry about the scrolling, but that's the nature of the digital media. It's all scrolling. Here we have, of course, we talked about this in our POTUS report on Monday as well. President Trump put America first during the Hanoi summit. This had to do with Kim Jong-un not meeting the denuclearization. Well, actually, it had to do with the sanctions. He wasn't going to drop the sanctions. Kim Jong-un wanted to have the sanctions dropped only after half of the agreed upon denuclearization topic, and so it wasn't. I think there's just a little bit of, posturing in the negotiations, but I'm sure President Trump will work things out. As you know, there are certain terms that President Trump just finds not negotiable. So, and if he had to walk away from a deal, that meant it was best for America. Here we can, and you can go in back to the blog here and take a look at that in more detail for yourself. This is also the POTUS and FLOTUS report. So we're going to talk about the First Lady as well. She visited Dove's school in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And this was very important because here she's promoting her Be Best campaign, which she's really working very hard to do. I love to see what she's doing. She's been going to all over the place. She's been also at, I think she was also at Apple earlier this week as well. Or no, Microsoft headquarters, talking about parental controls and trying to, support that there are more parental controls on these video games and things of that nature. Here she's talking about her Be Best initiative. And here she's talking about, she says here, quote unquote, I cannot emphasize further the importance of character-based education for our children. Dove schools embody kindness, respect, positive interactions, and strong character through the curriculum that they teach every day. You can go read more about this if you'd like to know more about what our FLOTUS is doing, our lovely FLOTUS. Here's a notice, continuation of the national emergency with respect to Ukraine. And you can read about this as well. This is basically something that you can take a look at for yourself in more detail. This was it's a renewed declaration. It's not new. Okay, so hold on. I have to stop screen sharing for just a second so I can go to the next day. Isn't that the strangest thing? But the tab to change the page is under the button that I need. So sorry about that. Let's just go to the next day. So this was Tuesday now on March 5th. This was, okay, so the First Lady was in Las Vegas and she was basically doing her own town hall there. She was talking about combating the opioid crisis there. And she says, opioid addiction is one of the 3 pillars that make up Mrs. Trump's Be Best campaign. And this is her second time appearing to speak at a town hall hosted by Eric Bolling. So this is important to read about. You can take a look at this. And again, this is, all in conjunction with, the law enforcement, the meeting with the attorneys general and their programs to stop the drugs from coming into the United States. This is long, so you can go take a look and read through it by yourself. Here we have Americans credit President Trump as the economy continues to soar. You can go through this and read about his approval rating, about what the Washington Examiner says about the economic optimism here. We actually have Fox News and Wall Street Journal saying it's the hottest market in half a century. So maybe they got the hint that, fake news was the enemy of the people and they need to start eventually reporting the facts as much as they may not want to. But here we have, worker wage gains just broke 3% for the first time in more than 10 years. And I have to say, today there was also it seemed like it was, I'm sorry about that, American Workforce Policy Advisory Board meeting in which Ivanka Trump was also attending. And this had to do with all these small business, or I'm sorry, not all small business, with people from IBM there, Apple, Home Depot, all kinds of businesses who had the president had asked to form this committee in order to come up with solutions for the workforce. Because what's being reported, folks, is that there are more jobs than there are people to fill them in the United States right now. So they are trying to address this. The president held, and I will be reporting on that a little bit later in the week as well. And we'll just keep moving along. Here we have the president signing an executive order on the national roadmap to empower veterans and end veteran suicide. This is a really important topic, folks. I, encourage everybody to go through this and read this. These are some long comments. He says we're making progress and we're going to take care of them like never before. Veterans are America's greatest national treasure, and a lot of people understand that. This is I wholeheartedly 100% support all of our veterans, and we at the GoldFIsh Report do. And of course, we always have veterans as our co-hosts, mostly, not all of them, but we have a lot of veterans that are involved in GoldFIsh Report, and we're so grateful and appreciative to all of them. We're going to keep scrolling. Apologize for the scrolling, but it was a very long statement there. Our country is facing a growing emergency at the border. Okay, here is a statement by the press secretary discussing the humanitarian crisis. You can go through and read the details on that. Undeniable emergency, taking urgent action. These are the kinds of things that the president talks about. Here we have nominations sent to the Senate. This is great, folks. This is really great. We have new judges coming to district courts, United States Marshals. So we have District Court of North Carolina, the Pennsylvania, Western District of Pennsylvania. We have the Western District of Texas. So lots of new judges, folks. And of course, in our POTUS report on Monday, I went through a list of all the present, according to Wikipedia, all of the new appointees that the president has put in place there. So, and there was one withdrawal sent to the Senate, and this was in California. I'm sorry, in Pennsylvania. We also have a new, So Inter-American Development Bank, we have a person appointed there as well, and Office of Personnel Management. So this is really great news. I mean, the president is busy doing what he says he's going to be doing. Okay, this is the actual executive order, the national roadmap to empower the veterans and end suicide. And so, to reduce the veteran suicide rate, the federal government must work side by side with partners from state, local, and territorial and tribal governments, as well as private and nonprofit entities, to provide our veterans with the services they need. I have to tell you, folks, I knew a veteran who was so afraid to go to VA when he got sick that it led him right into a terrible facility where sadly, due to negligence, I believe, let's allege that, caused his death. And that's how afraid he was, really, of going to the VA, because historically the VA hospitals have been horrible in terms of service and help for our veterans, according to veterans. It's not my opinion, it's their opinion. So I'm glad to see that the president is doing something to help these brave men and women who have gone into combat and maybe found, had problems there or were wounded there or whatever happened. They need help when they come home. So we're very much in support of the president's executive order for this. Here we are. Here he's talking about it. He said he was, sorry. The executive order he's announcing here, these are Prevents Initiative, It establishes a task force that includes secretaries of Veterans Affairs, Defense, Health and Human Services, and Homeland Security. So basically, but there's more, in terms of trying to work with private and nonprofit sectors and so forth. He does consider this a national tragedy. He wants to strengthen veteran support and improve the quality of care for our veterans. So again, we are strongly supportive of that, the GoldFIsh report. Continuation, the next one is the continuation of the national emergency with respect to Venezuela. And this is a continuation, so this is not a new one. As I had talked about in previous bullet points presentation that we did, I highlighted all the current active executive orders, national emergencies, not executive orders, but national emergencies. And it was surprising to know that we had about 31 of them. So it was quite interesting that they're still ongoing and they just keep getting renewed every year. So you can take a look at this. President Trump announced his intent to nominate key individuals to individuals to key administration posts. We have William Kilbride of Tennessee to be a member of the Tennessee Valley Authority. And we also have Julie Raskin of Colorado to be a member of the Board of Directors of Legal Services Corporation. We have another press release, the Congress of the United States. This is National Emergencies Act. Provides automatic termination of a national emergency unless, within 90 days before the anniversary date of its declaration, the President publishes in the Federal Register and transmits to Congress a notice stating that the emergency is to continue in effect beyond that anniversary date. And we talked about this in the bullet points presentation that I think that I did about 2 weeks ago, and that information is in there as well. And you can, visit the blog here to find that as well. And so for today, this is why I'm saying there's an awful lot that the president's doing, and I'm happy to share it with everybody. Okay, I'm going to screen share this one, and this will finish it up for today. These are remarks by President Trump in greeting with former United States hostage in Yemen, Danny Bursch, and family. So this is important remarks that he said regarding this very horrible situation as a gentleman, as a captive prisoner. And so you want to read about this. These are long statements. Usually there's a lot to talk about. POTUS nomination sent to the Senate. Again, we just talked about that. William Kilbride of Tennessee and Julie Raskin of Colorado. And here we have Assistant to the President, Peter Navarro, how Team Trump is keeping promises on trade. And you can read all about this as well here with regarding to Mexico, the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement, and more. We also have the executive order, revocation of reporting requirement. This is interesting. This is an executive order that is revoking the reporting requirement regarding, I would say, collateral damage when it comes to, this is requiring that the civilian casualty report be submitted in unclassified form, but recognizes that the report may include a classified annex. So that's what this is about. You can read more about it in detail. I'm not going to go into the detail, but it's on the blog. Statement from National Security Advisor Ambassador John Bolton. This has to do with the, here we have the United States strongly supports the democratic transition in Venezuela, led by interim President Juan Guaido and the National Assembly, and is pursuing several new diplomatic and economic initiatives in support of that transition. I'm not going to get into the details of this. You can go read this for yourself. And of course, we have the West Wing reads, which, again, they're talking about the border crisis. The more than 76,000 migrants crossed the southern border illegally last month. So the highest number in 12 years. It's a very big border, folks. I'm sure they're coming in all different places that, it's like, a hole in the dike in the wall. You have to keep plugging that up until you, fortify that. So you can read all about this here. Here we have First Lady Melania Trump and challenging journalists to cover the opioid crisis as often as they publish idle gossip and trivial stories. You gotta love the First Lady. She made the request while speaking in Las Vegas Tuesday at an event with conservative commentator Eric Bolling, whose 19-year-old son died from an overdose in 2017. So, there's a lot of really good news here if you want to catch up with it. We also have more announcements for the president intends to nominate a key individual to an administrative post. This is Jesse Liu of Virginia to be Associate Attorney General of the Department of Justice. Here we also have President Trump approves Alabama disaster declaration. So this also has to do with their storms and really tornadoes regarding on March 3rd, just a few days ago. There were some pretty awful tornadoes coming through that area, and there was a lot of damage and unfortunately loss of life as well. We have also the 1600 daily report, which is talking about the border at breaking point. So this is the New York Times reporting about this as well. Some of the things I just mentioned. It's time to end this national tragedy. Here you have a photo of the president signing the executive order again to help end veteran suicide. So we have quite a commitment from the president on these topics, folks. He's very busy. This is what's made published through the press secretary office, and there are some things that I'm not able to report on until after they happen, so they will not be reported until afterwards. So some things may be then the following day, but I won't be doing this, I would say, every few days for now, unless there's an exceptionally high number of events happening in a day or something of extreme, urgent nature. I would do that on a as needed basis. So I hope you enjoy these shortened versions. It's just the highlights of the press reports for the POTUS and FLOTUS, and we hope to see you next time. Remember, folks, to please visit us on thegoldfishreport.com and help to keep this public funded, this viewer funded channel going for as a public service to you, because without that we can't make that happen. So we do rely on our viewers for that support. So we want to thank you all for watching, and this concludes this edition of the GoldFish Report.